All right, Jess, you ready for rapid fire?
Let's do this thing.
All right, we've got a lot of Marcus Freeman stuff that we're going to get to in rapid fire. So for the people, grumbling and moaning and everything else about there's not enough Notre Dame talk, here it comes. We've got a lot of Notre Dame stuff coming up in rapid fire because we've got some audio from the press conference today, including there was a question about this in the chat that we haven't got a chance to get to yet. The offensive coordinator search. So here's Marcus Freeman from earlier today.
Don't have a timeline. I don't want to put a timeline into naming the right guy to lead our program, our offense. And we'll do a national search. We'll do a search. And it's a unique situation where our previous offense coordinator was the tight ends coach. I believe we have a quarterbacks coach that is second to none in my beliefs in Gino Guidugli. And so it's a unique situation where you're going to look at an offensive coordinator that has shown to maybe coach tight ends, but also I'm going to consider Gino Guidugli continuing to be our offensive coordinator moving forward. And so I don't have a timeline. I want to make sure that we make the best decision for our offense and for our program moving forward.
Okay, so Gino Guidugli is going to be considered for the offensive coordinator position. I know this had to make some people's ears, just ring this afternoon. So what do you think, Jess?
What I think is Gino Guidugli, I think you have to you can't discount the internal hire, right? Because then what are you saying to your staff? And so I think it's a very diplomatic type of response. Listen, I think Notre Dame needs to go one direction and one direction only when looking for their offensive coordinator. They need to look and study which of the possible candidates have run a similar offense that would incorporate or integrate Riley Leonard as best as possible. Has Gino Guidugli ever run an offense that is kind of centered around, basically RPO-esque, right? The ability for the quarterback to be mobile and use his feet. I don't know, but I don't want to ask someone that's never done that before in year 3 and Marcus Freeman's kind of biggest year to kind of come up with an offense on the fly. And to me, that's why Denbrock is so is the top candidate because of his ability of working with Jaden Daniels, a similar type of mobile quarterback. And we talked about it. When Jaden Daniels got to LSU, he was not a Heisman candidate. Mike Denbrock transformed him, molded him, worked with him, and that's what he's become. And so I want an offensive coordinator that has those similar tendencies and have ran an offense that looks similar to what Riley Leonard would be doing at Notre Dame.
Yeah, and number one Indy fan, good point. You don't make a hire for a player. You're right, but you have to make the hire for the kind of guy who can play to the strengths of the players.
Look at the rest of the quarterbacks. Carr, Minchie, and Deuce Knight are very similar, in my opinion, to Riley Leonard, guys who are able to be mobile on their feet, right? It's not just straight pro style drop back.
More so Knight than Carr, but yeah, Carr can still move.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that, and I saw somebody say this, I think that he has definitely given himself a fallback on Gino Guidugli. Jared Parker was last year's fallback. The problem is there's so much inexperience with Gino Guidugli, and you just went through this with an inexperienced offensive coordinator, and it was this roller coaster. I know that Gino Guidugli has a good football mind, or else Marcus Freeman wouldn't have hired him to begin with. And he's a good quarterbacks coach, but it comes back to the question, do you want another inexperienced coordinator when you still have an inexperienced head coach?
Right, when the expectations are ticking up for the head coach.
Yes, with everything is being held under a microscope now because you had a 4-loss season and you've got a 3-loss season in your first 2 years. And because of the schedule that you've got, because of the defense that you have and the roster you were putting together, next year shapes up where this program has every reason to believe that it should be in the college football playoff next
That's what I mean.
year.
So let's look at devil's advocate of this one. How would all of us as fans feel if they go with another inexperienced offensive coordinator and they don't make the playoff next season? How would that, what kind of perception or tone would that send considering we see all these great recruiting classes and everything else that, that we're stacking recruiting classes. We get another inexperienced offensive coordinator in year 3 and don't make the playoffs and waste another year of a transfer quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's time. I saw Sam said there's 8 months until next season, plenty of time to find someone. Well, you've actually got about 2 months. Really, you want it done in far less than a month, even, because you want whoever it is to be putting his offense together and start implementing with that offense at least a month before spring practice starts. Unlike last season, when Jared Parker took over and really had no time to put any true personal touches of his own on the offense after Tommy Rees left. So I do find it interesting, like the stuff with Mike Denbrock, who we talked about yesterday, like Gino Guidugli is a quarterback's coach. So let's just say he were to get promoted, then you've still got to go out and hire a tight ends coach at some point. Probably easier to hire a tight ends coach than an offensive coordinator, but Denbrock, also a tight ends coach currently at LSU. So he would fit the bill in a couple of different ways. He's got the experience, as you said, Jess, talking, with, working with different kinds of guys, running RPOs, doing all that different stuff. So personally, I feel like, again, Gino is a little bit more of a fallback at this point as they look at some of these other guys with a lot more experience and a lot more profile as well. Now, speaking of the skill set, question came up today about Riley Leonard, and this kind of ties into the offensive coordinator and the whole thing. The question was, did they go out and get Riley Leonard because of his specific skill set or despite his specific skill set? And here's the answer from the head coach.
He was the best quarterback that we believe was in the portal. And, to me, you get the best players first. And then you say, okay, how do we tailor what we do around those guys? And that is so important. And so we weren't looking for a pocket passer. We weren't looking for a dual threat guy. We're saying, okay, as we look to take another guy out of a quarterback to add to this program, who's the best one that fits this place? I've always said that, right? The best one that fits this place. And then how do we tailor what we do offensively around those guys? And so I think that's the situation more than anything with Riley.
What do you think about that, Jess?
Yeah, I like what he said because, he basically said we aren't targeting a specific type of quarterback. We just want the, best quarterback that's in the portal, and then we will kind of figure things out afterwards. And I just kind of looked up quickly on three's rankings of the top portal quarterbacks, and Dylan Gabriel is 1, Riley Leonard is 2, Will Howard is 3, Cam Ward is 4, Kyle McCord is 5, DJ I'm not even going to say it.
Uiagalelei.
6, KJ Jefferson is 7, Dante Moore is 8. And so I didn't realize how highly regarded Riley Leonard was in that fashion. But, I think that Riley Leonard is going to pan out to a really good quarterback. It's just a matter of, the staying healthy part. And I think that's got to be the biggest concern. But I like Marcus Freeman's perspective of we're not necessarily looking for a specific type. We just want to gather all the best players that we can and then figure out something, how to piece that puzzle together once they're all here.
Yeah, it's interesting because I just saw, somebody make the comment about Riley Leonard. The quarterback of Duke shouldn't be better than the quarterback at Notre Dame. Well, if they would have gone out and gotten Riley Leonard out of Notre Dame, just like if they would have gone, or out of high school, just like if they would have gone out and got Sam Hartman out of high school, you would have been complaining because they would have brought in 3-star guys. And it's, this is what Riley Leonard is now. He has turned into some, like quarterback development is a different story. And as we've talked about, that's where Marcus Freeman and his coaching staff, with the kind of guys that they have recruited, that's where they've got to take this off. We can,
Jason
Brian
Smith
Kelly is gone, so we don't have to get into the whole, development of quarterbacks argument. We know that it was spotty at best, but I do like the fact that he's talking about, there are a couple of different things with this. One, I do think that you need to, like, as you recruit, you do need to get guys who are more similar in their skill sets. Because again, like going back to the way Brian Kelly recruited, you had an Ian Book, you had versus you had a Brandon Wimbush versus you had a Phil Jerkovic, and then like you had a Drew Pine and you had a Tyler, so they had guys whose skill sets did not match up. So if you went from Tyler Buckner to Drew Pine, you were obviously going to do different things with your offense. I would like to see more similar kind of quarterbacks, so you're not rearranging your entire offense.
Yeah.
Every time you go from one quarterback to the other. Yeah, that's exactly right. Similar for the most part to what Ohio State had been doing before Kyle McCord, who was obviously, falls out of what they had when they had been successful, but you know what I'm saying? So, but I do like the fact that he's talking about, look, you get the best player and you find things in his skill set that you can accentuate and play to. You play to their strengths.
I mean, listen, I get what you're saying, but a lot of people are, talking about consistency. It's like, Alabama went from Tua to Mac Jones. You know what I mean? Like they didn't.
True.
They went Jalen Hurts to Tua to Mac Jones, right? Like Mac Jones is the outlier of that group. So, I understand that you want some kind of consistency in that system, but at the same time, you kind of have to play with the, where the cards are dealt at in that given moment, right? You have to look at what guy you're going to be rolling with and what they do really well. Then there was another comment about, Notre Dame shouldn't be, like you were saying, going after, Duke's quarterbacks or whatever. To me, it's like some of these guys get into college and they're a lot more raw. And then Notre Dame, to me, is like the perfect situation because you don't do any work and then you get a nice gifted package with a bow on top of a developed quarterback that's ready to come in and play with a different level of, surrounding cast, essentially. And so it's almost like, what can we do? And then Notre Dame cuts out the middleman, right? Like they're just like, okay, yeah, we'll take this player or that player or this player and, acknowledge and be appreciative of all the work that's kind of gone in to get that player to that point.
Yeah, exactly. There were a couple other comments. Bernie was saying that going back to what we were talking about with offensive coordinator, defense is so loaded, any offensive coordinator will do. Now, were you saying that this year with Jared Parker? Would any offensive coordinator do this year, or is that just next year because Jared Parker is gone now? I think that maybe you're singing a little bit different tune now at this point. Marcus Freeman absolutely has to nail this offensive coordinator hire, which to me,
it's the biggest choice of his career so far.
Yes, that's right. Which to me, like as much as he might like Gino Guidugli and know that Gino Guidugli is a good coach, and again, I think he's a good coach as well, it would be a lot harder, I think, to hire an inexperienced offensive coordinator given everything that is riding on this hire going forward. Okay, so another comment from Marcus Freeman talking about CJ Carr. He was asked about CJ Carr's ceiling, and here's the answer.
It's high. I don't know how high it will be, but it is. It's extremely high. I watch him throw the ball in practice these last couple of days, and he's got a great arm. His decision making. He processes information and makes decisions at a high level, but he's a freshman, right? He's got to, the one thing you can't take into consideration when you talk about hard work, you have a goal and we know it's going to be hard work, but you never know how much time is going to be put in, has to be put into to reach those goals. And so we'll see how much time it will take him, but I truly believe he has such a high ceiling in terms of where he'll be as a football player. And he's so competitive. That's the thing about CJ. He's smart, he's athletic, he's talented, but he's competitive. And those are things that are hard to measure. We get him around. He comes to some junior days and those things where he's around some of his teammates. He's one of the most competitive guys there is. And so that's what you want in a quarterback.
By the way, for everyone in the chat, we will be playing some of Micah Shrewsberry's comments here in just a minute as well. From his,
I was getting ready to say, I haven't seen any of this. I want to.
Oh, you haven't seen it or heard it yet? Oh, no. I can't wait for you to hear this. Then to CJ Carr talking about all this ceiling and upside, and does it make you nervous at all to hear all this so much on this guy up front? When he hasn't,
yeah, it does, because you don't want to set that bar up and then that player never reaches that bar. I'm more on the boat of not like undervaluing or underappreciating what when talking about CJ Carr, but at the same time, I feel like this is what I think frustrates fans down the road is you hear all this great talk about, Tyler Buckner, you hear all this great talk about
Tobias Merriweather,
and then you get everything let down. Your feelings get let down, your expectations get let down. And so again, I'm not saying you need to go up there and obviously you're not going to speak negatively about a player, but I think you can kind of have some reservations and be more general in your comments, because then it tends to be when that player doesn't perform, it's okay. What is the error? What is the fault? Why is it not working the way that we thought it was going to?
And that's what everybody's going to be asking. It just, then people expect, why isn't this guy playing right away? And the first time Riley Leonard has an off game, get CJ Carr and, all these different things. There's so many different things that come with it. It does make me just a little bit nervous. But I mean, they obviously, this is a big time recruit. And like between Leonard and CJ Carr, like these are the two biggest quarterback recruits that have been brought in here in a long time. Obviously, Leonard for where he is now. Again, like we were just talking about, compared to when he was coming out of high school. But like, this is big time for Marcus Freeman. So it just makes me a little bit nervous to hear that much praise heaped on a guy who hasn't done anything yet. But the one thing I love hearing is about the competitiveness. Like that, you talk about common traits between Riley Leonard and CJ Carr, and hearing Marcus Freeman talk about it, the competitiveness. And I do think that goes a long way, because I think that when you look at traits of some of the most successful players, that competitiveness is right at the top. The fact that they are so competitive with so many different things.
Yes.
Fill in the blank. Marcus Freeman also said today that Leonard is staying at Duke through their bowl game, even though he won't be playing in their bowl game. So he's going to be with Duke at their bowl game, even though he has opted out and just signed today to come to Notre Dame.
I think that's, Sam Hartman did that last season. Obviously, he played in the bowl game, but
he didn't sign. He wasn't signed.
Right.
Like it wasn't even known exactly where he was going at that point.
Right. So it's a bit interesting. It's a little bit of, a head scratcher, but there's gotta be something that he's doing to kind of get maybe, like when you get out of a bad relationship or a relationship ends bad, there's closure, right?
Uh-huh.
I think there's some sort of closure that Riley Leonard is seeking from his time at Duke. I mean, the guy was, a starter ever since he got there. And I just think that while, yes, he's coming to Notre Dame, we can't get caught up of that's where he started. That's where he developed. That's where he matured. And so, again, that closure is what Riley Leonard needs. I don't know what he needs it for or what specifically, but to me, that's what comes to mind.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's pretty cool because, like, people have asked before, could you still play for your school in a bowl game even if you were in the transfer portal? And you obviously can. And the fact that Riley Leonard is doing this, I do think that it's pretty cool. Like Irish Steel 63 said, it's okay. Those are his brothers. Like these are the guys that he's been strapping on with.
Like he's been the leader. He's the quarterback, right?
Yeah,
like he's not only his brothers, he's the guy leading them. He's the commander going into battle and war the last, 3 or 4 years.
And I mean, if the coaching staff has no problem with it, his teammates have no problem with it, there's no reason to have any problem with it. But again, it's very unusual based on where we are, because just look at Notre Dame. You don't see any of those guys sticking around, guys who entered the portal and who are going to, like, they're all scattered. They're gone.
Yeah, it shows a good character, and I don't have any issue with it as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely it does. Absolutely it does. So today is the early signing day, like the start of the early signing day period, December 20th. So we're 3 weeks into December now. at this point. You got bowl games started. Consider everything else that's happened, coaching changes, transfer portal, all this different stuff. Does it make any sense to you to keep the early signing period in December? What would you do with it? Do you change it? Do you move it someplace else? What would you do?
No, I like it where it's at right now because it gives the opportunity for guys who want to enroll early to be there for spring practice, their first spring practice, or not spring practice, that spring semester before they roll into fall camp. You know what I mean? They basically get a camp before camp. And to me, that was like when I was playing, that was the hardest part is you get there at camp and you kind of have the deer in headlights look, right? You're trying to mesh with the team. You're on campus, you're trying to figure out the playbook, all of those things. And so when you have the early signing period where it's at, and you have guys who want to early enroll like CJ Carr, it just allows them to get grounded and settled in a little bit easier. So I like it for that reason.
John says the only signing period should be in February. I like having an early signing period, and I think coaches like it as well because of the fact that, like, there's 2 months that you don't have to worry about decommitments, basically. So I think they like getting it over with from that aspect. But there are just so many things going on all at once that I don't think that is necessarily a good thing. I've said before, I would like to see the early period come at the end of July, right before training camps start, right before the high school football seasons get started and all that stuff. Do it in late July because most of your guys are committed at that point anyway. So why not? And then if you don't sign by then you have to wait until February. Or maybe you even move the signing period up instead of February. You just move it into mid-January. Do it right when the semester is getting started again and guys are coming back to class. I just think that putting it here when you've got coaching searches going on, like you get an unexpected guy, Jared Parker, who's going to become a head coach now. And now you've got to deal with that while you're also, out there in the transfer portal and you've got guys entering the portal and all that different stuff. I just think that there's too much stuff going on in the middle of December, but I do like having an early period. I just don't like it in the middle of December with everything else. Jess, do you buy or sell bowl games need to provide financial incentives for players to get them to not opt out?
Yeah, so
this goes along David Carpenter. I'll throw his idea in there as well. He says, what would you think of having a prize pool of money to pay players in bowl games? Those who win get paid more, but even losers would make money.
Yeah, so basically what this is saying is like an insurance policy for the players. Listen, I think that there should be incentive enough to play, and especially with NIL and how much you can, stack up now with the NIL. I think these guys should just want to play for the sake of wanting to play, to finish out, their career, to finish out whatever it might be. And to me, I just view that as an insurance policy. And I think the guys who are really, 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 your top maybe first round draft picks, and that's why they're not playing because they don't want to get injured. I still think that whatever money can be thrown at you is outweighed by, your bonus, your contract, the endorsements that start happening once you're a first round NFL player. So again, I just view this as an insurance policy, and I'm more on the boat of if you're getting all this NIL money already, the game itself is what should motivate you.
Yeah. Should you make the NIL agreements contingent upon you have to play in every game that you are healthy enough to play in, that kind of thing. And that includes bowl games. Like, that's a possibility. I just don't think, I do think, one, how is the Sun Bowl? Like, the Sun Bowl getting Notre Dame, they could probably come up with a lot more NIL opportunities than if it were Louisville playing Oregon State, for example, because you've got, just look at how excited all the Sun Bowl people were. Like, so they could potentially come up with, again, more NIL money there. But in general, I just don't see them being able to come up with enough cash. What is it going to be? Like $10, $20, $30, $40,000?
Well, then you start into a trend of everyone's going to want to do that and just be like, well, if I don't get paid, I'm not playing.
Right. So then you're inducing, the guys who are supposed to be the best players, but there's other guys on the roster who are potentially making nothing. So I don't think that they would be able to come up with enough money to make it all work out, honestly, to keep everybody happy in that situation. So it's a sell for me as well. Okay. So Notre Dame men's basketball.
This is what I've been waiting for, to be honest. I wanted to play it in the background because I saw it was a 5-minute clip, but I was like, I'm not going to get too distracted.
Well, it's not 5 minutes, but it's a couple.
No, like the full Citadel, like his full post-game press conference. I think was like 5 minutes.
So this is edited down, and Bennett Weiss from WSB 22 here in town edited together some of Micah Shrewsberry's comments. This is not the video from that, but this is the audio from that. Micah Shrewsberry, after the 65-45 home loss by Notre Dame to the Citadel last night. You lost at home by 20 points, and you didn't lose by 20 points to Kentucky. You lost,
and you only put up 45 points.
Yes. So here is Micah Shrewsberry.
I apologize to anybody that paid money to come watch that effort from that team. The one thing is they at least got to watch one team play hard. I thought Citadel played connected. I thought they played hard. I thought they played with a purpose. And I thought our team was poor in that area. That starts with me. Number one, it starts with me. And I got to find a way to get these guys ready to go. This game was over before we even got here. We have no energy to shoot around. We didn't have any energy at practice. That's who this team has been. But you have an opportunity, right? You try and learn from whatever the last game was. We're building a culture, and that ain't it. That is not the culture we're trying to build. So a message needs to be sent to some of these guys that, if you don't play hard, then you can sit and rot over there on the bench, and I'll find a way. I'll go and talk to the people in compliance. I will help you transfer, because this culture is getting built the right way, and if you ain't a part of it, you're out. And I don't care.
So there you go. Notre Dame men's basketball coach, Micah Shrewsberry. First time you've heard it, Jess. So what did you think?
I loved it, to be honest with you, especially for a first-year head coach. I mean, he's not saying anything that's incorrect, right? And he even said it starts with me. So it starts with me, but also, we have to establish this culture, and especially right now, this team. Shrewsberry, year one, a lot of inexperience. The one thing you can control is how hard you play, right?
Yes.
And so if they know that they aren't the best team or the most talented or the most skilled or the most interconnected, you can still show up and play with passion and hard work every single time. And so I love a head coach like that, because I think he is establishing the tone for what this program is going to be. And like he said, if you're not going to live up to that, I'll find a way to get you out of here. I can expedite the process for you to get out of here.
Yeah, Keon asks if he is sincere. I mean, this has been a consistent message from him from day one with everything that he has said, as it should be. The non-negotiable is your effort. And he said from day one, he had no idea what this team was going to be. And he had to cobble together a roster. He had a couple guys, he had 3 guys who were left over from the old roster. He had some freshmen, some good freshmen, but then he had to go to the transfer portal to put together the rest of his roster. So he had to cobble this thing together. And it was a listless program the last few years under Mike Bray. That's exactly what it was. It was a listless program.
It was dry. It was dead. It was unenergetic. It just felt like going through the motions.
That's right. And I mean, Jesse, you played 2 sports in college. How much did your coaches talk about effort with you?
Yeah. I mean, that's, that you have to have the mentality, and it's the hardest part. Don't get me wrong. You have to have the mentality, even when you're not playing well, things aren't going as expected. You still got to show up with that lunchbox every day to practice and to every game. And you just got to control what you can control. You have to control your effort, how hard you go, and how passionate you are about it. Because if you control those things, you can bridge the gap for a lack of talent, a lack of experience, whatever it might be. And so again, it's hard sometimes. I get that, because no one likes showing up after getting stomped, or no one likes showing up after having a bad day.
Right.
Like, those are the days you got to show up and work a little bit harder.
Yeah. You can lose, but you're not going to lose going out there looking like a bunch of bums.
Well, we make fun of Vince here and there a lot, but my freshman year when we played, he was my freshman football coach over at John Adams High School. Vince always said, we might not be the most talented, but we're going to be the most conditioned and we're going to work the hardest. And that was our mindset every single day. And I would say that after it was all said and done, we overachieved in some regards because we played better against teams because of this reason. We were going to show up and we were going to play our game, and we were going to play our game hard.
That's exactly it. And I've seen some people saying that Shrewsberry is blaming the players, not taking responsibility. I mean, he took responsibility and he didn't blame the players. He just called out the players for a lack of any effort. Like, what would you be happy if they lost by 20 points at home to the Citadel and he didn't?
And he just rolls in there as like, oh, yeah, it happens.
Night, whatever. He wants this thing. He wants defense to be a part of this, and
to me, it shows his commitment of wanting this thing to be good, to turn this thing around.
Right. It's got to start with that foundation that you're going to roll out there every night. And regardless of what the outcome turns into, they are going to give everything that they have from start to finish.
Listen, most coaches obviously coaches don't want to lose, but if you go out there and you do everything possible and you play as hard as you can and you lose, then you just lose, right?
Right. It's you still don't want to lose, but it is far more acceptable if you go out there with everything that you've got, and then that ends up being the result. But you're Notre Dame, and you just lost to a team, the Citadel, that was 6-5 going into the game. They've lost games to Presbyterian and the College of Charleston this season. And he's setting the expectation for what he wants this program to be, and lack of effort, listlessness. Again, that was something that happened too much in that program the last few years. So I think the message is simple. It's play harder, get out. That's where it's at. And I've got no problem with it. And I would hope that nobody else does as well. All right, a couple quick ones before we get out of here. This is going to be our final pre-holiday show. So I've got a women's basketball game tomorrow, and then I am hitting the road to Kansas for Christmas on Friday and into the weekend, and Jesse's going to be traveling around as well. So real quick, who you pulling for in the playoff semifinals, Bama or Michigan?
This is an easy one. I'm 100% pulling for Bama. I will always root. The only reason we think Bama, we get tired of Bama, is because they're good. I'm not going to knock being good. Just beat them. Get good. And so I don't like what Michigan has become. I don't like their head coach. I don't like, the way that they've gotten here. And I got a really good friend that's a Michigan fan, and I love rubbing it in his face. And so he's even going to the Rose Bowl, he said. And so I said, all right, well, hopefully that Rose Bowl can catch all your tears afterwards.
I'm completely with you, and I never thought that I would be, pulling for Bama, but I just cannot stomach seeing Michigan win and have a chance to play for a national championship. So it's Roll Tide all the way.
Yeah, the best part of my New Year's Eve last year was watching Michigan lose to TCU.
Yeah.
It made my night. I loved it.
That's true. Yep. Fill in the blanks. Your favorite Christmas movie is blank. Your least favorite Christmas movie is blank.
My favorite Christmas movie is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. There's no debating it, really, in my opinion.
I raised you right.
And my least favorite movie, and this is a controversial take considering where I am located right now, I am not a fan of A Christmas Story. Never have been. Never will be. I think it's slow. I think it's sad. I think it's depressing. I don't like it. So
I think it's hilarious.
That's where I stand.
I don't think it's slow, sad, and depressing. But Christmas Vacation is my favorite, and it just shows that it pays off. That that I had that DVD, and we've watched it so much over the years. I always kind of thought maybe you were tuning it out a little bit, but that is my favorite. Elf is the runner-up. My least favorite, I've just never been into It's a Wonderful Life. It is so old and black and white and the whole thing. That's the one that I think is slow and sad and depressing. I'd like to see him make a good remake of it. Actually,
I told
don't
people
think
this was
they ever will.
a controversial take. Everyone in
Yeah.
the chat is going. I'll stand on it though. I will not watch that movie unless someone else is like, yeah, I want to watch it. I'm not seeking out to watch A Christmas Story.
Yeah. So every year at this time, the Die Hard discussion comes up. Do you buy or sell it as a Christmas movie?
I sell it. Die Hard is not a Christmas. There's nothing Christmas related. The only reason it's because they were consistently coming out around this time. I think you have to have some actual Christmas in the movie to be considered a Christmas movie.
This is what I want to know. Like, there's all this, like, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Lethal Weapon literally starts with a Christmas song. They come into Lethal Weapon in the open with a Christmas song. He makes a drug bust in the middle of, like a Christmas tree, like they're, where they're selling Christmas trees and all that stuff. Nobody talks about Lethal Weapon as a Christmas movie. And I think it is more a Christmas movie than Die Hard even. Yes. Thank you, Keon. Thank you, Corey. Yes. Smart people in this chat. I have never figured it out. I've never figured out like why no Lethal Weapon talk. To me, it is much more a Christmas movie than Die Hard. Die Hard, not a Christmas movie, and I will die on that hill. If you could add a Christmas theme to a movie that is not a Christmas movie, what movie would it be?
I'm going to be honest with you. This was a hard one, but I think you might get a kick out of this. I think they should have done like a Christmas version of Tropic Thunder. Like they're in the middle of like Antarctica or something. You know what I mean? Like they're and they're invading.
Santa Claus blows up,
Yeah, that's what I mean. And like they're outside with like in those village scenes and people are celebrating or singing like Christmas carols or anything like that. I think that Tropic Thunder would be a great movie to add some Christmas to.
Yes, T-Guns. I will die hard on that hill. I'm just going to go with my old standby. It is one of my favorites, Pulp Fiction. And I just feel good. Like there are so many places, like if they stroll up to the apartment in what is that? The third scene, where they go in, to get the briefcase back, like if they're in Santa Claus suits instead of black suits, or if John Travolta, when Bruce Willis kills him on the toilet, like if he's sitting there in a Santa Claus suit, or if you reversed it, if Bruce Willis like strolls in a Santa Claus suit and he shoots John Travolta while wearing like some kid, like he's leaving and some kid sees it. And then he ends up, in the car, where he runs over Marcellus Wallace and he's wearing a Santa Claus suit. I just feel like there are a million ways that Pulp Fiction, you throw a Santa Claus suit on somebody and it changes the whole tone of that movie. I think it would actually ratchet it up even another notch. So that's what I'm going to go with, Pulp Fiction. Well, I think that's going to do it, Jess. Are you off to Christmas parties tonight, or what are you guys doing?
I'm going to go to a Christmas dinner thing with some friends. So,
all right,
I gotta get going here soon.
All right. Well, we appreciate everybody being here as always, and again, we're going to be out after this. You can blame Vince if there's no show tomorrow, basically, from what I understand. So I'm going to put it squarely on him. So everybody, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year, the whole kit and caboodle.
Happy holidays.
Yes. Have a good one. Stay safe, and we will talk to you on the other side. But thanks for being here tonight. And of course, hit that like button on your way out and subscribe, rate, and review on the old podcast platforms. And we will talk to you later on IB Nation Sports Talk.